Hello, and welcome to another history class with Adole Batam Job. Today we shall be discussing boundary disputes and the threat to African unity in the theme History and Global Issues. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain why boundary disputes occur in Africa, identify the places where boundary disputes occur in Africa, and also discuss the effects of boundary disputes in Africa. With these objectives in mind, let's look at how this thing all began. During the conquest of Africa, which took place before European colonization, the European powers carved out different places in Africa for themselves. In fact, they even have to call for a meeting at a place called Berlin, that is in Germany. This took place between. This meeting, they agreed on places that each power was to control, meaning that the boundaries of African countries or territories were decided by these European powers at the Berlin Conference in Germany. Thereafter, the Europeans came, conquered African land, and occupied and colonized us. The creation of these boundaries were not done in consultation with the people, but was done according to the wishes of the Europeans, which was primarily to obtain raw materials. As such, the boundaries so created divided people of the same tribe, people of the same culture, and of the same socio-economic system. This therefore created conflicts or disputes, and disputes or disagreement over boundaries occur in Africa in the post-colonial period, and this is what we call boundary disputes. This shall form the main basis of our discussion. Now let's look on the screen. You can see the map of Africa showing various places occupied by various European powers during colonization. The boundaries you are seeing were created by these powers and not based on culture and socio-economic system or the wishes of the people. From this background, let us now consider the causes of boundary dispute in Africa. Disagreement over land and marine borders in Africa has been on the increase since independence. To this extent, we shall now consider the causes of these boundary disputes in Africa. There are several reasons that accounted for this occurrence. Some of them are European colonization, nationalism, as well as economic interest. We shall consider them one after the other. Now let's look at European colonization. European colonization simply means the ruling of various African countries or territories by the European powers, which is described as colonialism. Colonialism simply means foreign control. Africa was controlled or ruled by European powers. During this process, they carve out different territories or colonies for themselves without consulting the people, but according to their own wishes and interests. Their interest was simply to acquire raw materials. So in whichever area they were able to control, that area was made into a territory, irrespective of the tribe, irrespective of the culture of the people, and irrespective of their socio-economic systems. As such, boundary dispute was meant to occur because creating boundaries on lines, creating boundaries on the pages of maps without considering the realities on ground, without considering the tribe, the original borders, the traditional borders, was bound to bring up disputes or disagreement. And so European colonization of Africa is responsible for boundary disputes in Africa. It is responsible because after gaining independence, these countries tried to ascertain their original boundaries, and this has bred problems. For example, you have boundary dispute between Nigeria and Cameroon and between Morocco and Algeria. There are others too numerous to mention. Nationalism is another cause of boundary dispute in Africa. Nationalism simply means rise in national consciousness. In Africa before now, there was this rise in the consciousness of the people to achieve independence. This means that some African countries after independence reject the colonial boundaries and try to reassert their authority over the traditional boundaries or the old boundaries. Countries that took these measures in Africa include Ghana, Togo, and some other countries. This was also difficult to achieve, and in most cases, it bred conflicts or disagreements. Ghana was in disagreement with Cote d'Ivoire over their land boundary. Several other countries are also in disagreement in Africa. as a result of these old colonial boundaries. Now let's consider economic interest. Economic interest can be defined as the interest in the natural resources that is found within common borders between two countries. Several African countries had economic interest as a result of the discovery of natural resources along or within a common border. A good example is the discovery of oil in the Bakassi Peninsula, and this caused a serious dispute between Nigeria and Cameroon. This dispute was later settled in favor of Cameroon. So economic interest is another reason why there is a lot of boundary disputes in African countries. Let's look at some cases of boundary disputes in Africa. Africa has experienced a lot of boundary disputes, especially in the post-colonial era, that is the period after gaining independence from their colonial masters. This has been on the rise, and you can see in the pictures on the screen. As you can see on the screen, you can see the Orange River, which was a source of dispute between South Africa and Namibia. You can also see that Tanzania and Malawi had boundary dispute over Lake Malawi. And lastly, Bakassi Peninsula between Nigeria and Cameroon. These were all sources of boundary disputes, and they represent cases of boundary disputes in Africa. Having considered some cases of boundary disputes in Africa, let's now look at the effects of boundary disputes on African unity. Boundary disputes in Africa had far-reaching effects. Some of the effects on African unity include: it brings about disunity, it discourages economic integration, and it also contributed to the formation of the Organization of African Unity, OAU, now known as African Union or AU. Let's take them one after the other. Disunity. Several African countries that were having boundary disputes were disunited. They were disunited because boundary disputes created conflicts between them, and disunity is a barrier to peace on the continent. So boundary disputes created disunity because that disagreement did not allow these two countries to have bilateral relations. This also manifested on the wider continent because African countries were supposed to be united, but as a result of boundary disputes, most of them are not united. So there is disunity among several African countries as a result of boundary disputes. Let's look at discouragement of economic integration. Boundary dispute does not allow economic integration. By economic integration, we are looking at coming together to trade, coming together to do businesses. There is supposed to be close relationship, close ties between African countries. But as a result of boundary disputes, this has not happened. Such relationship will have allowed other countries to enjoy or benefit from the resources of different African countries. But because they are in dispute over land borders or marine borders, they hardly have this kind of relationship. Because of boundary disputes in several African countries, they could not trade together, they could not come together. And this has hampered economic integration on the continent. Boundary disputes also has the effect of being among the reasons why the Organization of African Unity was being created. The OAU, or the Organization of African Unity, was an organization created by Africans in the year 1963 at Ethiopia in Addis Ababa. This body was created partly to solve the issues of disputes over boundaries in Africa. As one of its objectives, in fact, the first objective of this body was to promote unity and solidarity in Africa. Unity because boundary disputes was tearing African countries apart. Solidarity because it was not allowing Africans to come together. Therefore, various sets of states on the continent came together with this idea of forming a body that can actually bring about peace and solidarity. To this effect, the Organization of African Unity, which is now known as the African Union or AU, since its formation or creation, has been able to prevent conflicts on the continent of Africa through peaceful negotiation of boundary disputes. And to this extent, the creation of this body has been a success. The disputes over land borders and marine borders was responsible for the creation of this body, and it is to this effect that this body has also been able to prevent further disputes through peaceful negotiation. We have come to the end of this lesson, but let's take a quick look at what we have done so far. We learned that boundary dispute is a disagreement between two countries over land and marine borders. We also learned that some causes of boundary disputes in Africa were European colonization and economic interest. Some cases of boundary disputes in Africa from our discussions are Nigeria-Cameroon dispute over the Bakassi Peninsula and South Africa-Namibia dispute over the Orange River. Finally, we discussed that some effects of boundary disputes in Africa are disunity in Africa and discouragement of economic integration. Now let's take some questions to test our knowledge on what we have done so far. Question 1. Which of the following is not responsible for the occurrence of boundary disputes in Africa? A. Formation of OAU. B. European rule of Africa. Or C. Rise of nationalism. The correct answer is A. Formation of OAU. Question 2. Which of the following is an effect of boundary disputes in Africa? A. Rise in nationalism. B. Disunity in Africa. Or C. Economic integration. The answer is B. Disunity in Africa. Now we have discussed boundary disputes and the threat to African unity. I want to believe that you can now explain the meaning of boundary disputes, identify places where boundary disputes occur in Africa, and lastly, discuss the effects of boundary disputes in Africa. Thank you and bye for now.